Hello and welcome to Innovation Celebration, the show where we celebrate recent advancements in science and technology, the people and ideas that make them possible, and the ways in which they advance human flourishing. My name is Angelica Walker-Worth, and today I have the pleasure of coming to you live from Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. And I'm joined by Adrian Pelkus, who is a serial inventor and entrepreneur who holds 18 patents, has worked on over 300 electronic products, and has worked with and run various organizations for inventors. Is that right? So
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Adrian.
Thank you, Angel, for having me. Delighted to be here.
Thank you. So let's start at the beginning. You've been inventing since you were, 14? Can you tell us about some of your early inventions and how you got involved with inventing?
Only child, self-taught, a lot of interest in science, so that background and building the models and the slot cars and even helped out at a TV repair shop. So I got a good background in electromechanics and electronics early age. Loved the idea of robots and worked on creating a little electromechanical hand that I designed. You saw the picture of that in the video. And a friend of mine's father suggested that I go show that to Dr. Setaguchi at UCLA. And so that was when I was 15. I interned there for a summer, and then the next year UCLA actually hired me as an electronics technician. So those were the beginning early years of working on things. Those were creating prosthetics for children, child amputee prosthetics project. So it was very rewarding.
That sounds wonderful. And since then, you've invented quite a few things. Could you tell us about the solar cell project that you worked on?
I had quite a lot of experience in what's called thin film technologies. I actually helped pioneer magnetic media to become high density. Before it was laid down horizontally, we created a way to lay it down vertically, which increased the density. I was the founder of the startup of that company. Also worked, it was Brunswick Defense Advanced Material Technology Center, and worked on some thin film coatings for their military use, which was a little morally reprehensible. So I thought, well, what other ways can we use this great technology? So it was apparent to me that I could create a solar cell. And in fact, it was I did create a PN junction telluride CAD sulfide solar cell thin film on plastic. And the idea there being it's flexible and very lightweight and super inexpensive to make. And we got to proof of concept on that, and I went to Alaska to show it to the world. And the company didn't succeed much, so the government actually acquired the technology, and it did go quite well for them.
Well, when you have a force on your side and all of the apparatus of government. And one more of your inventions I wanted to discuss briefly is the ways to open airways, non-intrusive ways to open airways during surgery.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, certainly. That was a great project. It's very successful and still on the market. I ran a club in San Diego Inventors Forum, one of the bigger clubs for inventors, and a young lady in the audience, April King, CRNA, was there. She had graduated USC and had spent months learning how to keep the head in what's called the sniffing position, because yes, when you're sedated, the airways collapse and you stop breathing, and breathing is kind of a good thing. So and it was the pain she had was just that, having to hold the airway open while adjusting instruments, while assisting the doctors, while doing all these other things. When I witnessed what she was doing, it was like a juggling act. It was amazing. Anyway, she met with me on the side, and on an afternoon, over a weekend, I built a little kludge working model. It worked on her daughter. We showed it to the head of anesthesiology at UCSD, and he was impressed. So we put a team together. I showed her how we raised the money, got the patents together, brought the product through FDA, and got all the tooling and everything done here in the U.S. I was very, very proud to say. And the product is called the Jaw Elevation Device, and it's sold by Hypnos Therapeutics Products.
Wonderful.
No, Hypnos Devices. One of those. Hypnos.
That's wonderful when you're able to help medical professionals give even better care. So we'll come back to this later, but you did talk, you were part of a film project called Innovation Race. And in the film, you mentioned that you call yourself an artificer. Could you explain what that term means and why you like it?
It's an old English term.
Is it?
Yes, it's one who creates things or invents things,
Okay.
actually makes things. The term inventor gets misused, and the connotations are wild, crazy hair people that Anyway, it only worked so far, so long, and I was a little tired of the people's reactions to that. For one thing, everybody thinks an inventor is either super rich or crazy, and most of them are neither. So
Right.
it was, I thought, a little bit more appropriate term. I thought I'd rebrand myself.
Wonderful. So you have all this experience helping people innovate and creating inventions. Can you talk about some of the things, and you can go as broadly or as narrowly as you'd like on this question, but what are some things that encourage and help innovation?
Necessity, frustration. I've got a number of great examples. I don't know if you were ever in a home ec class and they made you take an egg or carry around a bag of flour to pretend that was the baby that you were supposed to care for. Well,
Yeah.
A gentleman approached me that his daughter had actually encountered that, and his daughter had challenged him, saying, "Dad, you're a rocket scientist. Can't we think of something better?" And so he thought of it and said, "Well, we could create a doll that has sensors in it, and it simulates being fed, or if it was dropped or ignored, and it would cry randomly." And he considered all of it, but he didn't have the wherewithals to create such a thing. And so I was approached, and in fact, we did design it, develop it, patent it, and got the exclusive manufacturing rights for a few years. And it became a huge success. The pregnancy rates in those days was a major issue. And in fact, Newt Gingrich held it on the floor and said, "Here's the answer to the teenage pregnancy problem in the U.S." It won Fortune magazine's Product of the Year, and Parent magazine probably won a bunch of awards. But it was a necessity. I mean, how many times have you been somewhere and someone says, "Why can't we make a better this or do a better that?" And it's like, well, yeah, there's
Why not?
thousands, hundreds of thousands of concepts every day, but the very first problem is people didn't capture the idea, and along with the 50 to 70,000 other ideas they had that day, they just go away. So it's necessity is the mother of invention, and laziness is the father. Trying to find a better, simpler, easier way.
All right. Fantastic. So one of the things we've brought up a few times I really want to hone in now is patents. Can you talk about maybe just briefly what patents are, how they help inventors like yourself, and what kind of action you'd like to see in that area?
All right. Well, the story goes back to the forefathers of our country that when they came from England, in England you didn't own your ideas. Right. You could profit off the labor of your back. You can get paid for doing manual work. But labors of your mind, the king owned it, and if you did a great job, you got a seat at the table maybe and the knighthood. But no, you didn't. You couldn't profit off it. So our forefathers said, "Hey, this is a kind of revolutionary idea," which in fact was, for its time, the most revolutionary, that we would give the average everyday citizen, whether it be man or woman, the ability to have exclusive rights to their idea for a short period of time. Article 1 of the Constitution, Section 8, Clause 8, to paraphrase, says we give inventors the exclusive rights to their ideas. And it was that important to be in Article 1. So it was at the beginning the basis for our country, and it led to hundreds of years of fantastic innovation, because people came here hoping that the American dream meant that they could, in fact, do something that they had thought of and creative and profit from it and create and make a legacy. And they would take much bigger and greater risks in their life because of the chance of having that idea secured to them and them alone. So that was the only one or two places, I believe, in the whole Constitution where the word rights was even included.
Yeah.
Well, things changed over the years. We had a Congress that had been very heavily lobbied by a number of the major corporations that were made it a point to say that the small inventor was hurting their bottom line because they had to pay us royalties for our ideas that they were making even bigger profits from, and they wanted to cut down that cost, and so they pursued and they passed the law, American Invents Act. American Invents Act had a number of really horrific features to it, and they had planned to make it even worse. They were going to challenge somebody that H.R. 9 was going to make it so that the investors were going to be liable for any lawsuits that came after the inventor for just even patenting the idea, and that was just going to threaten the whole investment engine entirely. Until then, there had not been any voices in Congress except the lobbyists. HR 9, they spent about 100 million, and they had gotten 325 votes, and that's why it was number 9 on the list. They thought for sure it was going to pass.
Yeah.
Randy Landrenew had called me because I was the head of Inventors for him, and he said, "Hey, we need some help in Washington here. We're going to have a little meeting. Would you please join us?" And I did. And again, first time ever in history that Inventors showed up. And in one afternoon, we described how we perceived this bill and what it was going to do and how it was going to work. And in fact, they tabled it. Yeah. So it showed that it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, it's been bought and corrupted by all the corporations that, between Citizens United and other groups, we're sorry.
No, you're fine.
It's a changed world. Anyway, the things that came out of American Invents Act, one of the worst parts about it was they created a division inside the patent office called the PTAB, which is a division to invalidate issued patents for the sake of a corporation that says they're challenging us and we think their idea is obvious or it shouldn't have been patented. So they've created a whole infrastructure with a group called APJs, appointed judges, and these judges are not experts in their field. There's no trial. What happens to Inventor is they get challenged in a review. It only cost the company a couple 10,000 to start the process. It costs the inventor 400,000 or more to start defending themselves. They'll spend all that money, and all they win out of that case is the right to keep using their patent. Otherwise, what happens is they get trampled on, they'll invalidate some of the claims, and then you can't keep your royalty agreements because it was all dependent on that patent being valid. So you've got thousands of inventors that have, hundreds that have their parents in hospitals, their kids going through college. It's all dependent on the royalties they are receiving because of the license agreements that they were able to get based on the patents that they had been issued. And the investors believed the patent would protect them, and now that's all been eroded and dissolved, and we're seeing a patent agency that we paid money to give us a valid patent. We paid them to do their homework, to investigate all prior art, and they issued us a patent, and then they have the audacity actually to turn around and say, oh, wait a minute, we didn't do our job right, basically, and that we're going to invalidate your patent because there was something obvious in it. Well, that's wrong in all sorts of ways, shapes, and forms. If they'd done their job right, they would have found that out. Secondly, most of these objections are absolutely ridiculously inappropriate. But since there's no technical expertise on these PTAB boards, they just believe what they're told. They listen to the words and the verbiage instead of the meaning and the underlying. So it's turned into where thousands of inventors have had their patents invalidated at an 84% invalidation rate, and what that's doing to everyday American inventors is scaring the you-know-what out of us. I mean, why should we even pursue this now if the chances are we're going to get wiped out emotionally or financially once we actually get going, and if it becomes very successful, because some other company can now utilize these new techniques that Congress promoted, the Patent Office is following, and then finally the Supreme Court actually helped to support the whole situation there with some of their rulings. So we're a small voice of Americans that we believe add almost immeasurably to our society. Everything you see, touch, or use was created by an inventor. You know, some of these were entrepreneurs for corporations, but us entrepreneurs, we have relied on the validity of a patent that gave us exclusive rights, and that issued patent isn't worth the paper it was written on now because they can turn them around and invalidate that patent.
Yeah, that's got to be incredibly frustrating to work hard on something and then, months or years later, you don't have any rights to it.
It's more than just frustrating. It destroys people's lives and the mentality to it. Most inventors aren't lawyers. They're not extroverts. There are so many things that they're not, yet they get all of a sudden thrown in an arena where they have to deal with legalities beyond their head, and they're challenged on things they've spent dozens of years on, and they only have 20 minutes to answer these ridiculous questions and can no way manage that. So it's called a suicide squad. And the other side of it, when companies now that have learned, by the way, the rules that also changed had to do with injunctive relief, the ability to sue somebody who's infringing you. You used to be able to sue for triple damages, and they've removed that again because corporations were bought on the idea that us independent inventors are trolls. that because I don't have a marketing team and a manufacturing company and all of this, I couldn't get my product to market. I'm still working on it and getting
Yeah.
a license. They're huge, they're big, they can jump and put it in the market and take it over, and
Yeah.
they've done that. So the process now is called efficient infringement. In the boardroom, it's a term used. Should we develop this product, or should we just steal it from somebody and not even pay them for it, because if they try to come after us, they got no legs to stand on anymore. We independent inventors have lost our legs to stand on these patents. And efficient infringement is a scourge, and it's scaring and disincentivizing the American inventor to where they've either quit inventing, or they're just filing offshore or keeping trade secrets now.
Yeah, and a lot of the cost of this, I think, is probably what Bastiat would call unseen costs, in the sense that you can never see all the ideas that are never going to see the light of day because they've been disincentivized or they've been scared.
Right. Yeah, it hurts our society, it hurts our civilization, it hurts mankind, our progress. It's, yeah.
Yeah. But one of the costs I think you can see a little bit more is, if I'm understanding correctly, the relationship that this causes with the investors.
Yeah.
Because now they've lost the incentive to invest in these new ideas from independent inventors, because they have no guarantee that they'll be able to hold on to the patent.
Right. They've lost the trust in the patent. There's no guarantee there anymore that it's going to stand. And exactly right. There's been a few other things that have dissuaded investors here in this country as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we've got such a questionable thing of what is actually patentable. Mm-hmm. One of the aspects is called the abstract idea. And the abstract idea was brought about by a case called Alice, and the result of it was that we weren't allowed to patent anything as an abstract idea, something that doesn't physically exist or do something, which software isn't physical. And the further extent of that is artificial intelligence. And what happened here is we clamped down and didn't allow things to have that had artificial intelligence to be patented. Now, this has been a decade in the works, and you can imagine what the rest of the world has done as far as advancing what's going to be the most significant technology of our future. Artificial intelligence is a way that a system can learn by what it's realizing, what it's sensing. It can learn and improve itself. And that being applied to medical devices, transportation devices, military, anything, you name it. If you can have a device that's smart enough to improve itself, it will never become obsolete. And we haven't allowed American inventors to be able to patent that. Well, did China take that step? No. China's allowed patents. We see companies here in the U.S., I mentioned it before, that an MRI company, for example, was denied patents in the U.S. because it was going to employ artificial intelligence, meaning if they could image certain cancers, for example, by imaging enough of them and learning what it's seeing, what it meant, it could then become a database that would be the most efficient tool ever for doctors to have. Things like this will be the advancement of our race. And this country shot itself in the foot. I called it intellectual suicide. So that's just one aspect of the new patent system.
And some of the problems, yeah. All right, before we move on, is there anything else you wanted to comment about patents and the ways that that inventors and innovators are interacting with them, or any ways that we can help them?
Well, we're at a stage right now where there's some bills pending, and people can vote on bills that would improve the situation for the independent inventor. They just have to contact their congressman. The congressmen are oblivious to most of this. I was an activist and lobbied for a few years, and they're just not aware. And then worse, the American citizen is almost entirely unaware of these situations. So we have to raise the awareness, and thank you for helping promote that. But the easiest thing for people to do is to call their congressman or woman, and do it regularly, not too much because then they're pestering, but to regularly ring that bell, and more importantly, get a few other friends that they're all constituents, because it is a government of and by and for the people, and we do have the power. Unfortunately, people don't know that, and they're apathetic, and they don't even bother. So the halls of Congress sometimes are empty enough to throw a bowling ball down. It's important that people actually call their congressman and tell them, hey, what's your position on patents, and what do you think about these laws, and do you know about the new bills that are being presented, and where do you stand on it, and would you please help protect inventors' rights? And what happens is, If you mail them something, gets tossed. Email, not looked at. But if you go to their office, it's face to face. They've got to
They
resolve
have
that.
to answer you,
Or if
yeah.
that phone call. So if their phone rings 3 or 4 times in one day about the same subject, they know there's a hot issue button. There's a hot issue there. So it's very easy actually to influence your congressman just by being persistent and have a small organization, group of people in your town that are your supporters and backers, and pursue it accurate, and then actually go to their office in your hometown or in DC if you can make it there. Because that once they heard their constituents have these concerns, that means their votes are on the line. Until then, they're really just working for the corporate sponsors that paid for their election campaigns. But when they realize the people that vote for them now are at stake, that's where it makes
They take it
an
a little
impact.
more seriously,
Makes
yeah.
an impact, yeah.
Yeah, and for more information on this, by the way, I mentioned the film Innovation Race, and we'll
Yes.
put the link in the description where you can find out more about this movie, where you and some other people who, inventors and investors and various people involved in this, will go into more depth about some of these issues. Moving on a little bit, you served in the Navy. I'm curious if that had any impact on your career as an inventor or not really.
Yeah, it made me sure I want to get out of the Navy and get back into inventing and creating things and helping people.
Okay.
It was interesting. I was a flight simulator specialist, and so it was some more technical training and more electromechanics and things. But there's an acronym for the Navy. I don't want to even say it right now. But the point is, actually, the best thing came out is I met my wife in A school, and that's 41 years ago. And we started and we both had avionics training, so we started a business 38 years ago that's still running in San Diego. So that was, it was an incentive, and it had some training.
Yeah, so some skills.
But inventive? Invent new ways to skate.
Okay, so besides not joining the Navy, what advice would you give to aspiring inventors?
Well, pursue your passion. Pursue your passion. There's never anything lost. Even if it doesn't get commercialized, you had the enjoyment of seeing something you imagined come to fruition and actually work. Most inventors they got in inventing or engineering because they can make things work and they can't make people work. It's just different mindsets and things. So I encourage people to pursue their passions, learn about inventing. Most inventors will actually license their idea. They're not really building a business, but some do. So inventing is not entrepreneurship. There's different skill sets, but one can lead to another. So somebody considering inventing, that's an extension of being an artist. If you're serious enough about it and you think it's a really important creation, then you go and pursue protecting your intellectual property, getting the patent. Then commercializing it, you really got to change hats and become the entrepreneur that learns about marketing and knowing how your product is going to help people and focus on that. And it's an entirely different field than engineering and creating and manufacturing.
The same goes for many other fields. Marketing is completely different, but extremely important. So,
indeed. Most artists can create great art, but can't sell a single thing. Thank God for Etsy and a few other things. There's new ways now.
Yes.
And that goes for inventors as well. A lot of inventors are finding there is a path still. Amazon is a huge way for inventors to get products on the market.
Sure.
There's all sorts of other ways now using the web. It's made it a flat earth, and we can compete now internationally. And the independent inventor can, from his own house and garage, create a business and sell things. So it's really opened up the ability. So it's encouraging. It's the issue, though, is when you do want to license it to another company and they're relying on you to have a patent, or if you saw in the movie, the Shark Tank, all these investors, that's one of the first questions is, how far are you along in your IP?
Yeah.
Well, now it's a question of, well, how many other companies are going to try to stop you because they've got that ability now? And that changes it. So there's still opportunities out there. I have been promoting all this year that inventors boycott the USPTO for patents and instead keep their ideas trade secret or file their IP with WIPO, which is an international patent organization, which is just as valid. It's actually even a little better than a PCT, with a patent office here in the U.S. is only a 12-month provisional patent. And the provisional patent is only 12 months. A PCT is the international version. It's a 30-month.
Okay.
And
so
it's a
longer.
window that you can go out and test the market and see if it's going to really work before you pay the full expense of getting the patent issued.
Okay. Well, that's useful.
So that's what I like to convey. And I do coach thousands. I've coached thousands of inventors, and the story we're coaching has shifted over time, but that's the current version of it.
Okay. Something else, sorry to go back to the patents a little bit. I know I was trying to wrap up, but it's occurred to me. There's a book called The Permission Society by Timothy Sandifer, and he talks in that book about a number of competition laws, sort of similar to the PTAB, where you can challenge a business's validity.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially because they're creating competition. It sounds like this
Yeah.
is the exact situation that the inventors are dealing with now with the patents. So unfortunately, this is a trend, and there are a lot of problems with it. So I'll link the Permission Society book as well in the show notes. But.
Well, there's a number of books for inventors. The two biggest authors right now, the biggest author in the field is Stephen Key, and his book One Simple Idea became a guidebook for inventors that want to license their idea. And it's to paraphrase his whole idea, it's come up with the idea, do a provisional patent, the least expensive kind, do a sales sheet and get it out there and see if you get any reactions, and try to get the person who's interested in licensing to pay for all the development and all the rest of that work. And people do, but it's 1 out of 1,000 chance. So it's a long shot. You got to be clear that inventing is not a get-rich-quick scheme. For many, it's a get-poor-slow scheme. So you got to do your homework up front. Know that there is a market need before you go and spend all your money. Especially, I've met so many people that actually went to China and got the whole truckload of stuff, brought it here, and can't even sell it to swap meet for what they paid to have it made for, because they didn't do the market research that's needed up front to know what the public wants. Product development is bringing to the marketplace a customer-accepted idea from initial concept through design and into manufacturing on a predetermined cost, budget, and schedule. So there is an actual definite, but if you don't follow those steps right, you end up just losing all your time and effort and money, and you end up with a big garage full of junk. So
solid advice there. So second to last question, we love asking on this show because we talk to people who have been involved in innovations and inventions for their whole career. So what is your favorite innovation or invention that you've ever heard of, worked on, just are aware of generally?
Oh, not my own?
Either way.
Oh,
you can do your own or just any of them.
Well, there's plenty of fantastic, wonderful things. I love what Elon Musk's doing. But by the way, if you've heard Elon Musk's statement about patents recently, it's all getting a patent is like buying a lottery ticket to a lawsuit. So, but my own patents of the things I've developed, I'm very proud of. I like things that help mankind and the environment. I've actually developed over 300 products, but most of those were for other people that had found a market need but needed the help to create it. And I created their working model, something demonstrable that they could then take to investors and so on. Sure. My own things, though, have been mostly medical, and I've had some good successes. Actually, very good. Than the more significant ones, there was a product I helped create called the Baby Think It Over doll. The inventor I worked with, his daughter actually challenged him, "Dad, you're a rocket scientist. Can't we think of something better?" And so he thought of it, but didn't have the wherewithal. I worked with him and developed the product, started up the company and brought it into manufacturing, and it went great. It has the sensors to tell if you're feeding it, if you're caring for it, and so on. And Newt Gingrich held it on the floor and said, "Here's the answer to the teenage pregnancy problem in the U.S." Yeah, that was a great moment. And I've had products that, again, have done their work for medical uses. The jaw elevation device for anesthesiologists is still being sold. It's a great tool to help you keep breathing when you're sedated, and breathing's kind of important, so that's a good tool. And then my most favorite is my wound treatment system that I created from scratch, and the process is called vaporous hyperoxia therapy. It's for treating, it was first for burns, but it ended up being used for diabetic foot ulcers, which 110,000 people have an amputation a year, a $17 billion problem in the U.S., and it's really devastating to the family. And I combined some essentials for wound healing and automated a system. Started the company, got the investments, got the patents, got the FDA approval. At one point, we had machines all across the country, and the nurses were calling it a miracle on wheels. And I have testimonies from people saying it actually saved their life because it saved their limb. And it's cleared actually for burns, grafts, frostbite, decubitus ulcers, and bed sores. And we've treated people that had 15-year bed sores and seen it heal. So it's got a great future and promise, and it's being commercialized. It got a billing code and so on. So the company was acquired. It's being run out of Colorado now, but that gives me the greatest joy in projects that I know have actually helped people's lives, better their life, Yeah,
we love talking about medical innovations on this show because they improve your quality of life, they save lives. There's just no way in which they don't improve human flourishing, and in tons of ways in which they do, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, indeed, makes it worth it. Makes it worth it. I had a few that they didn't make it, and so sometimes you have great successes, sometimes you have great losses, and there's a balancing act in the middle there. And it's sad when they don't make it, but there's so many varieties of things that can go astray and go wrong. You have to have a lot of good team, good investment, and good plan. And persistence. And then if we had a good patent system to give us good patents, we'd have even more going for us. But right now, it's a little challenging, especially for things that are very successful. Most things don't get commercialized. It's a patent as a trophy on their wall. Look, Dad got a patent when he was, but he didn't commercialize it. Some do, and the ones that get very successful are the ones, though, they're getting, of course, clobbered. So. That's on in every industry. We've seen people from making jump ropes to things that are reading blood with optics. They're getting the patents invalidated. That's how eclectic the mix is of patents that are being hurt by the patent system currently. So we need to remedy that, and there are some bills pending right now that would help resolve this. Taking us back before the American Invents Act would be a good thing.
Wonderful. Before I ask you for any closing thoughts, is there anywhere besides, like I said, I'll put the link to the Innovation Race movie in the show notes. Is there anywhere else people can go if they want to follow your work or learn more about what you've done?
My website's a little primitive, but it's inventingwithadrian.com. My company is in California, is californiaproductdevelopers.com, and that is 37 years, and there's quite a bit listed on that. As far as the patent issue goes, I was a founder of U.S. Inventor, which was a 501c4. But all I can say about that is if you'd like to know more information about what's going on in this circle about patents and what we're trying to do about it, their website is usinventor.org.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any closing thoughts for us?
Thank you. No, just looking forward to seeing this and sharing the links.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.